Hey, here we are. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves, and we are at the 200 mark with my Nacet blade. Here's my little 190s counter, and we've got one more dot to put on it that we'll do after today's shave. And I'm still going to shave with it for a few more days to complete the Austere August challenge, if you will. I started late because I had logistical reasons, and so September 4th is actually my 31st day. And so that's when I'll quit with this blade as well for a little while. Enjoy some of my other razors that I can't use with this blade because it's so old. The razor I am able to use it with is this timeless stainless steel open comb. Been using it all month. And it's the 68 gap. It's got the blade in it. I'll show it to you in a little bit. We have the B2 boar brush from Zenith, and it's a terrific brush. It's not scritchy, scratchy, or super stiff or anything like that. It's on the other side, kind of middle of the road in terms of backbone, but very soft in terms of the tips. They've all split. Very comfortable brush. And my bowl, I don't often show it in dry mode, so here it is. The Roger Quintero designed. I helped him a little bit with it. Pretty big bowl, like 5 1/4 or something like that, inside diameter. Got an inturned lip at the top here. Got a flange at the bottom for holding. Brush rest here on the side. Obviously you see the grooves, or the veins there. They're the opposite of grooves. And then in the center is a divot that also helps to flex the bristles as you move it across that, and it keeps the brushes from sliding all the way down and getting all up in the lather. And there we go. It's a 3D printed one, and in the description there will be a link to those files if you have access to a 3D printer. The soap, as always for this month, Chiseled Face Midnight Stag. Stephen Joyner of Dogwood Handcrafts has issued a challenge for this month to use Midnight Stag soap and aftershave, and there's another challenge where you can use the cologne as well. Get something extra for that challenge, but I didn't have the cologne. It's kind of expensive, and so I just stuck with the smaller challenge. And I have gotten a little flack from the family about the strength of the scent, and so I try to time my shaves so as not to offend them as much as possible. But 200, right? 200 uses on this blade. I started in Austere August of last year, 2018. It was when I reached 14 or 15 uses, it was the most uses I'd ever put on a blade with my Nacet. And so this is by far the longest blade that I've used. And so I'm no marathon expert across different blades, but I have a lot of experience with this particular blade. I don't shave against the grain, even with a fresh blade. It doesn't work with my skin. It gives me razor rash, and often on my neck it gives me cuts. So I do 2 cross grain passes. I'm not shaving with pain or anything like that. I'm not trying to kill myself to make this razor go long. I'm going to stop it whenever if it gets painful. I'm also going to stop it if it becomes a chore to get a good cut. Right now I've had to move it to more aggressive razors. Normally this particular razor is a little too aggressive for me with a younger blade. Well, with an older, smoother blade, it worked great, and it's what I need. I've also had to start buffing a little bit, kind of repeating small strokes in certain areas in most of my face to be able to still get that shave. But it's not inconvenient. It does take a little bit longer, but I'm fine with that. And I'm not chasing that baby butt smooth shave. So those are a few caveats. I don't shave goatee area. And I I think that's my hair density, I'm going to say, is maybe average to a little bit less than average. So there's that. I do have a big head, so even though my goatee represents an area where I don't shave, I have a larger surface area, and so it may kind of equal out. But anyway, there you go. So 200th shave. What are some of the things I attribute it to? Many of these are guesses, because you have to be able to know what's success. You kind of have to have a control, and then the experiment, the variations, so that you can know how it improves over the control. Scientific method kind of thing, right? Well, I don't have that, so I'm just guessing here, okay? I like really wet lathers. A lot of times they're wetter than other people might like, but I think that helps to give me a nice lubricative layer on my skin, which is going to reduce the wear on the blade edge. That's my guess. I like to, I do 3-pass shaves almost always, so that's fine. Let's see. And I've already mentioned some of the other things, like, I did have to give up the feel of that first maybe 10 uses or so, where the blade just feels like it's going to effortlessly cut through everything. And it's okay to have just a little tugging, as long as it's not painful. If it's a little uncomfortable, okay. And sometimes I've even tolerated a little bit more than that. But you see what happens when you're marathoning a blade, and I was advised this by some other guys who have done it, is that sometimes you'll have a dip in performance. You'll have a crappy shave, maybe 2, and then it'll come back, and you'll be back to your regular good shaves. And previous guys would attribute that to just user error, something like that. And that's all right. And I've seen that bear out in my experience too. And I do move up. I started out with mild razors, but I think maybe use number 30 or something, that's when I had to start stepping up into other razors. And I would go through kind of my whole collection, trying them out and using them until they felt a little too rough to use. Eventually I got to my Gillette Sheraton, which I used for, 30 shaves or more, around the 100 mark. And then I discovered this razor here. And maybe the 70 to 90 mark, I was able to find, I've been able to use a couple of my razors that I normally can't. I have a Charcoal Goods level 2, which is a beautiful piece, but it's too aggressive for me by far. And so if I ride the cap, it helps a little bit. But with that smoother, older blade, I was finally able to use that razor and enjoy it for several shaves. So that's kind of cool. All right. And so that's where we are with this particular razor. This 68, it's their mild head, but it's their open comb. And for me, it just seems to be quite a bit more rough than the 68 mild, the 68 scalloped barb. All right. So with today's shave, my theory, something I'd like to try with the lather today, is addressing the issue of the micro bubbles that are just in this lather. I have used the Marco method and done other things to where I brought a lot of water into it right away. I've also backed off that a little bit to my normal method, which is come at it with a lightly wet brush, and then kind of slowly add water, but still in kind of larger increments. And so I think for today, I'm gonna, in trying to chase keeping those little tiny bubbles out, I'm gonna come at it with a much drier brush than I've used ever, and then very slowly add water and maybe mix it for a long time and just see if I get a different lather. Now, I'm not going to have you watch that in real time. That would be a chore, right? So I'll pause the video, I'll look at my watch, and I'm thinking about working that lather for 10 minutes. Now, that's obviously something I'm not going to do, even if this is successful. I'm definitely not going to do that every day, because after all, this lather, if you've been watching any of my other videos, you've seen how it's a good lather. It's slick. It leaves a nice slick layer on your face that works really well to protect you and let that blade just slide around and cut whiskers like it should, and not you. But it's for scientific purposes, so let's do that. Let's see if there's a way to add water so slowly that those little micro bubbles are minimized to a great extent, and we'll see what we get. Just to know if it's possible. It may not be practical because of the time it takes to do it, but just to see if it's possible. Okay, so my usual thing is to wet my face. And I don't treat my blade with anything between uses. All I do is rinse it with water. I don't dip it in alcohol. I don't palm strop it or anything like that. I also don't pre-condition my face with any kind of oil treatment. I have oily skin anyway. Who knows? Maybe that's somewhat helpful in making a blade last a long time. I don't know. But I don't use any kind of pre-shave, soap or oil or anything like that. Just what I did just now. Water is all I do. Water here, as usual, is I'm using tepid water, and it is hard water at this location. So we know that cold Chiseled face works just fine with hard water. Okay, so here we go. 200 uses. I mean, that's just nuts. So I tell you that story in just a second. So this has been soaking for a while. I'm going to shake the water out. In fact, let's not bother shaking. Let's actually do a squeeze, which I never do. Really get as much water out of there as we can. Okay. And just for grins, let's do a 15-second load. I've had great success with 7-second loads with a normal method. But today, let's do a 15 because we have a drier brush and I don't know what to expect there. Also, I weighed this without the cap, 123 grams. 123 grams. So it seems as though I'm going through 1 gram of soap every 5 shaves, and that is uncommon. All the other guys who are measuring their weight are using, I think, 1 to 2 grams per shave. Go figure. All right, so we're going to do a 15-second load. If it doesn't look like I'm going to load enough, I may add a little water here. So let's see. We're going to hit 55. There we go. So 55. So we'll go to the 10 mark. So we are getting kind of some whiteness right there. Medium pressure. And that's 10. Yeah, interesting. Look at that. I don't normally get that because I use a wetter brush. And look at what it picked up. That'll be interesting to see what happens. Okay. So now we'll go right to the bowl. Now, whatever minimum water we have in the brush, I'm going to see if that can combine with the soap here. And let me go ahead and get my syringe here. 2 teaspoons of water. I'm going to add just a few drops and start working it. And we'll just see if we can ease the water into this soap and maybe have something more creamy than what I've gotten thus far with a little bit less air in it. All right, so that's kind of what it looks like now. I am going to just slowly add water and mix droplets of water at a time, very slow process, just to see what we get. I'll be back. Hey, just checking in with you. It's been about 5 minutes. I have added almost a teaspoon and a half of water. The 8 drops roughly at a time. And the lather is coming together, obviously, but it still has those little micro bubbles. So it looks like even if you go super slow, this particular lather is just going to do that. That's the way it works. Some may also say, well, you've got these spirals in your bowl. Maybe those are adding some aeration. You know what? That's true. But I also did several face lathers this month, and they still had those same bubbles when obviously I don't have any. My whiskers are my only aeration for my face. So I think that's just the way this particular soap is designed to work. Like I said, it's not really a problem. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of this syringe because it's clear that that's just, these little micro bubbles are not going to go away. So I feel like I don't need to crank on it for the full 10 minutes, like I said. So now what we'll see, the last few shaves I've used about 2 teaspoons of water. So we'll see if the amount of soap that we picked up with the dry loading is more or less than what I've used in the past. Doesn't look like I have as much quantity in here. There's some story I was going to tell you while I was doing working on the lather that I alluded to, but I'm afraid I've long since forgotten that. This handle does get a little slippery when around the fingertips there, if it gets soapy. I'll clean that off a little bit. I do think this is enough lather to do the job, but I think it's less lather than I'm used to. Nice scent. Whole different set of notes than what I'm used to. That gasoline-y scent is long gone. Woodsy scent is there, a little bit of leather, but it's a different kind of leather. It's almost like not a musky leather like it used to be. Still like it. I don't think I want to make this lather wetter. So let's just stick with that. I can always add a little bit of water to the brush if need be. Okay, not a lot of lather in there compared to lately, so I may not have gathered up as much soap on the brush as my 7-second load usually does. All right, throw a little bit of water on my face. All right. Bicentennial lathering. Feels very airy and dry. Yeah, let's go ahead and, oh yeah, look at that. Barely anything in there. I'm gonna refill my guy here. And let's add some water to the bowl. Yeah, I may have to go back to the soap puck. I bet I just didn't get enough lather from that 15 seconds. So that could affect things. Matter of fact, let's do that. I'm going to take a little bit of water, put it in on the soap puck, and let's just load for a few seconds. And that'll probably be fine. Oh yeah. See, I put two teaspoons of water in but I didn't start with nearly as much water in my brush this time. So that definitely could amount for much drier lather than usual. So today's experiment, wasn't quite the data I was hoping to get. I was hoping to find a way to get to the bubbleless creamy, but didn't work out. Science. At least now I know that I don't need to use up my time trying to slowly add water to make a better lather. It's just not going to work out. And look how this is dissipating on my face. Obviously not enough water and soap. There we go. There we go. Now let's see, how does this drop? Not very much in terms of a stretch before it drops. So let's add a little bit more water. Now, one thing I could do that, may possibly get me the lather I want is, today may have been a good idea, a good theory, but I just didn't load for long enough, and so I didn't come at it with enough soap on hand. I don't think it would make a difference, but that's possible. I don't even think I'm going to explore that possibility, that scenario, because I doubt that it's actually going to give me a good return on my investment, if you will, since I've kind of partially tested that out. All right. Notice all those contours. I do have to run this lather a little drier than I usually like to. Had a little bit more stretch before dropping that time. I feel like adding some more water still. Refill my syringe, so now we have added a total of 4 teaspoons. Let's add another half. So I like Midnight Stag. It's one of the first soaps that I ever got when I started wet shaving. I was only on Amazon at the time. I didn't know about all the forums and subreddits and things like that. And I would pore over the descriptions to try to figure, and the reviews, try to figure out if a scent was for me or not. And I was very blessed to only have the wisdom to only get ones that had just a large majority of reviews that felt good to me. And so I got very few duds, like one dud out of that whole introductory group. All right, I think let's go ahead and use this. Throw a little bit of water on my face. And go at it. Yeah, that's much better. Needed more soap and more water. I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of the more water. All right. Switch to the swiping motions here, painting strokes, and we're ready to go. Now, let's show you the Nacet. Upside down, but you can see the X started using last year. Another thing I do is I never touch the edge of the blade. Not even if I'm lifting the blade up to put it somewhere or anything like that. I always touch only the unsharpened tabs there. All right, here we go. Little tuggy, but not too bad. Lifting my chin up to tighten the skin a little bit. Turning my chin away, same reason. And there we go. Rinse. All right. Load up the brush again. Added a little bit of water to the lather because that first pass was a little dry. A little drier than I might want. This is nice. Now cross grain on my cheeks. If the lather doesn't rinse from your blade, from your razor, with just a falling type of water spray, then you probably have a lather that's a little too thick. You have to use a jet of water to clear your razor. You're probably need to hydrate your water a little more. At least that's the way I like my lathers. And if that's a problem for you, I'd encourage you to experiment with adding more water to get to that point and see if you like that kind of lather. Maybe you don't. Maybe you do. We'll give it a shot. I am using a jet of water on mine, but that's just for speed. I don't have to. And now rinse again. And we'll load up the brush for the third pass. Working some late hours tonight. I may not actually go to sleep. Got some deadlines. But I thought I'd give myself a little mental break. Take care of this shave, enjoy that for a minute, and then get back to the grind. Smooth as silk now with the glide. Now you can tell your lather is too wet if your razor skips across your face. Right here, this stroke here is often the one that skips for me. And so that's a good tell. Maybe because it's a little flatter right there, I don't really know. Sometimes right here, this from north to south will skip if it's a little too dry. I'm sorry, too wet. Just loosely holding the razor, whether I'm gripping it up here like this, or whether I'm doing my neck part and I'm kind of holding it like this sometimes. See, there's plenty of room for movement there. Bristle. Plenty of room for movement. Light pressure. I should have mentioned that earlier in the things that I think are helping me to get longevity out of these blades. Light pressure, I think, is probably a key. And it's also a key for a good quality shave. It's also a key for your safety when you're done using one of these blades and you switch back to a new one that's super sharp. If you switch to a pattern of pressing down harder to accomplish that good shave because of your older blade, you might get some dings when you switch to a newer one, unless you keep it light. Let's do a pass, a little touch up right there. And rinse. All right, so let's put that touch up on. Got plenty enough lather for it. Probably another pass, so definitely enough for a little neck touch up. This soap does, even though it's got those micro bubbles in the lather, it does do a really good job of laying down a nice protective layer. I'm slanting my head just a little bit to help get some nice cuts, a nice close shave in this, my trouble spot area next to my Adam's apple. All right. There we go. I might have actually, did I nick myself right there? I don't think so. I think that's a spot where I've just kind of got a small mole. All right, there we go. That's 200. How about that? And this blade doesn't show any signs of quitting. What I'll probably do is obviously finish out the 31 uses. And then I'll put this blade away for a little while, enjoy some others, and then every once in a while I'll bring it out for maybe a run of 10 uses or so, and then just see how far it goes. I mean, can I go a whole year? Can I go 365 shaves with this thing? I don't know. It just, I'm not actually feeling too much of a difference between now and 50, 70 shaves ago, to be honest. Go figure. All right, well, in true Dogwood Handcraft sponsored Midnight Stag Challenge fashion, you're going to smell up the place with this very polarizing scent. My wife definitely doesn't like it. There is a boozy quality to this aftershave. I don't get any stinging or anything like that. Means my technique was good, that lightness there. I've gotten used to kind of the menthol. It's not as bad as when it started out. I believe I used 5 teaspoons of water, but I kind of had to rescue it, so it's not really a valid or a helpful measurement at this point, but I figure I'd say it. All right, that's 200. I'm going to clean up. And here's the brush after stropping on the towel. Doesn't look like it's changing too much over the course of the month. I guess it was broken in enough. And I take my lather bowl here. One nice thing about the big lather bowls is you can then put some of your kit in them. Little syringe. This is a yogurt cup glass. It's smaller on the top than it is on the bottom, so it's the perfect size for me, at least, for soaking badger brushes and boar brushes and all that. And now let's put that dot on the blade envelope right next to the T. There's a 10. So now we have, for a long time I had 50 on the front. What do I have on the front? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Okay, so I think I have 90 on the front. And then I have this many on the back. I'm also dual counting, not only these dots, but my computer has also recorded each use as well. I'm just that kind of a nerd. And after each shave, I loosen this up to get some gap in there. Run water, shake water out. Place away from children's grabby hands. Clean up more. And there we go, all done. Get back to work, see if I can stay awake. I took a 5-hour energy, so should be able to. Midnight Stag. I enjoy it a lot. Not too many other reflections. I've shared a lot during this video. And it is just shaving after all. But how about that? I had no idea this blade would last this long when I started it last August. But here we are. So 200, and it'll be 204, I guess, by the time I'm done with this consecutive 31 shaves for Austere August. I'm not saying that everybody can make a blade last this long, but I am saying that more people than think they can probably can. And there are some benefits, like there's a smoothness, there's a period of smoothness that you can get to where you're just not going to nick yourself. You can experiment with other razors that might normally be too aggressive for you, or you can just enjoy nice smooth shaves because the blade has kind of evened itself out a little bit. Because obviously I'm still cutting hairs. I'm still cutting hairs really closely. I'm getting great shaves. The quality of my shaves generally has not deteriorated at all. And so obviously a blade can be used many times and still cut hairs well. Now for some of you with really tough hairs and who go against the grain, that may make things different. If you only have a mild razor, that may make things different. But I probably think you might be able to get 20 uses out of a blade, maybe 30, even if you only have one razor. So give it a shot. See if you like it. All of a sudden, I mean, I'm not doing it because of the cost. Blades are cheap. But there are some expensive ones. And if you can get them to last 20 or 30 shaves, then all of a sudden they're not expensive anymore. And they're just as cheap as anything else out there. So you can play around with the expensive ones if you want. Sometimes they shave better, sometimes they don't. All right, well, this is Sugar Daddy Shaves, and this has been quite a journey. Small little milestone when you think about all the issues in the world and all that, but you know, a little ritual. I enjoy every day with the shaving, and I'm happy about that. So this is Sugar Daddy Shaves. You take care. 200 bicentennial. Have a good night.